Okay, David, let's start with you. I mean, give us a sense of how the Tennessee Riverkeeper first came to be aware that there may be a problem with these chemicals in the Tennessee River.
We've been Tennessee Riverkeeper has been looking at the issue of 3M's PFC pollution for a couple of years now, and our legal team determined that there was a good case here, and we sent a notice of intent to sue under the Resource Conservation Recovery Act in September of 2015, and we followed through with filing the lawsuit to sue 3M and other parties for their PFC pollution into the Tennessee River last week.
And I want to get to some of the legal details, but I mean, David, how does one become aware of this? I mean, for a layperson, I walk up to a river, I have no sense of specific chemicals that may be in there or not in there. I mean, how did this manifest itself, or how did it come to the attention of Tennessee Riverkeeper?
Well, that's what riverkeepers do, Sam. We monitor the river, and we are spokespeople for that river. A riverkeeper organization is an independent, nonprofit 501c3 that is looking out and protecting a specific body of water. And we do that by educating the public and enforcing environmental laws and litigating the evil polluters if we have to. And there are over 300 waterkeeper organizations around the world that are aligned under the Waterkeeper Alliance, which is led by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who founded the organization in 1999 with about a dozen of the original riverkeepers around the country. But when a riverkeeper not only is it an organization, but there is a full-time staff position under that organization, and my job is the staff riverkeeper, and it's my job to look out for the river, to monitor pollution permits, to take water samples and analyze already existing water sampling data, and to talk to the public as well about the issues that are in the river. I believe this issue was first made public by the Alabama Department of Public Health when they issued fish consumption advisories for the Wheeler Reservoir. I believe it was a few years ago when they first issued those, and those fish consumption advisories really put this issue on the radar and made a lot of people in North Alabama rightfully concerned, especially the people who are catching and eating the fish.
So, Mark Martin, as the Riverkeeper's chief prosecuting attorney, what elements do you start to look for to determine whether or not there's a viable case here? I mean, from my perspective, again, as a layperson, when I start getting notices that I can't eat the fish coming out of a body of water, that suggests to me that there's something wrong here. And presumably, right, there are the laws that say you can't put stuff in the water that would make the fish dangerous to eat.
Yeah, that's correct. Here the harm was not only to the environment, but there was a direct exposure pathway to humans from the drinking water and from consumption of the fish. And we felt like we had a case under RCRA to pursue that, and that we could achieve a satisfactory remedy.
I'm sorry, RCRA is?
Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. It's a federal statute, and it has a citizen suit provision that allows citizens to act, to bring a lawsuit in federal court when the state agencies or EPA has not acted.
And so, Derek, from the perspective of an outside law firm, I mean, why wouldn't the state agencies act upon this? I mean, it seems to me that once you issue a warning about the fish, I mean, it would be incumbent upon you to do something about it.
Well, and you think that it would. You think that it would. It's really a good point. The issue with it is not so much will. These state agencies, I believe, in general, and we're a New Jersey/New York City metropolitan area-based law firm. I believe the state agencies like the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, like Alabama state agencies, like the federal EPA, They have good intentions. The problem is the proliferation of this problem, where there are in New Jersey, 20 to 40,000 brownfield sites. Nationally, there's 500,000. And pragmatically speaking, I just think that, as with most government agencies, you're talking about probably an agency that's understaffed. These agencies also have seen budget cuts and things like that, so understaffed to begin with has gone down even further. And they're dealing with a massive, massive problem. And with respect to environmental issues, these are very complicated cases. Sometimes they take years of diligence to abate an environmental problem. So you're looking at an agency that probably has the best of intentions, but is understaffed and overwhelmed by the magnitude of the problem in general, where it can't focus on anything in particular. And as a result, something like this flies, though on the radar, kind of under the radar in terms of being cleaned up. So that's why the citizen suit provision exists in RCRA, the provision that Mark was talking about. It effectively deputizes citizens to help out departments of environmental protection, to kind of stand there beside them and say, you know what, we know you're busy, we've got this one.
And David, so when you, in your role as a riverkeeper, you're going down to the water, you're taking samples, I presume that you are conscious of any type of maybe manufacturing plants or any type of, other entities that may be on the river that may fit the profile of a potential polluter. I mean, how do you get a sense of, that there's these chemicals in the water, or that they could be coming from this company or that company? I mean, tell us a little bit about the process.
Well, it certainly takes a lot of research, and a lot of people do think that a riverkeeper is just out there on a boat every day of the week, just driving up and down the river looking for pollution. But it's a lot more strategic than that. The research process often takes place in the riverkeeper office or at the various state regulatory agencies like the Alabama Department of Environmental Management or the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, and it begins by looking at the polluters' permits and their what's called their discharge monitoring reports. And under the Clean Water Act, any corporation or municipality who is discharging into the waterways has to have a permit. And in Alabama, the Alabama Department of Environmental Management has never met a permit they didn't like. Mm-hmm. So they're rubber stamping these things, even though they're underfunded and understaffed, and oftentimes they'll get approved, and there's not as much enforcement once they're approved. And oftentimes Riverkeeper can find the red flags in these violations simply by looking into the state government's files and their pollution permits there. And under oath and under risk of perjury, these polluters are often admitting that they're in violation. And from there, we'll go and investigate by land or by water or even by air sometimes, because there's no trespassing laws in air, that we can find friendly pilots to fly riverkeepers over concerned sites to get a view from the air and see what's going on there. But in Decatur, Alabama, there's a lot of industry, and Monsanto/Solutia is there, General Electric is there, 3M is there, and a host of other industries. So in Decatur, it's very industrial, and a lot of these are clustered into one section of the river, and by having so much pollution in such a small area, it certainly makes it harder to figure out who's doing what. But with 3M and their PFC pollution, that's been it's a complicated issue, but we have been able to verify that these PFOSs and PFOAs are indeed coming from 3M, and they're the main responsible party.
David, you were telling us about how Tennessee Riverkeeper goes in and begins to at least attempt to isolate what the source of a pollutant in the river is, and not what the pollutant actually is. And I want to ask you, Mark, as Tennessee Riverkeeper's chief prosecuting attorney, what do you anticipate? Like, when a company like 3M gets notice, and they obviously have been aware that there is a problem with what they're dumping into the water, because they've already sort of signed off on documents that say they are dumping this stuff. I mean, presumably, right? I mean, what is their first response to this lawsuit? Are they thinking, we're going to stretch this out, we're going to bring every resource we have to bear, or do they start to mount a defense? I mean, what do they do?
Well, I can't. This is really early in the lawsuit. I haven't heard from 3M yet, except some comments they made in the press. And I don't want to try to guess what their defense will be. I would be really pleased if they would contact us about how to resolve this and have an early settlement of the case. It would benefit everybody.
I mean, and to build on what Mark is saying there, there is, without, again, talking about this particular case and 3M's potential defenses here, what we have seen in terms of litigating these cases is that almost always, the responsible party, whether it's 3M or DuPont or a public utility or something like that, they all come out and say, come on, what are you talking about? We are working with these agencies to clean this up. And then you point out to them that they've been working to clean something up for decades sometimes, and nothing has really been done. But in almost every scenario, whether it's for public relations or whether it's actually a legal defense, in a lot of cases, that's what comes out of these corporations' mouths. Hey, we're working on this. We've got this figured out. And, that's kind of the starting point for a lot of the discourse.
Well, Derek, let me ask you this. I mean, in terms of this specific chemical, this PFOA, that is a byproduct as a function of developing 3M's non-stick stuff, right?
Right.
How does this stuff build up? Does it break down? In other words, are we seeing, when we see a report from the state of Alabama, like, look, you can't eat the fish in and around the Tennessee River around this area, are we looking at an agency that has just come across this, or are we looking at stuff that has built up over time and passed some type of threshold?
Well, with respect to both this case, but also I think in general, in terms of contamination, a lot of this has been going on for decades. Certainly with respect to this particular chemical, it appears that it's been going on since the 1960s. In fact, it's been going on since before some of these federal environmental statutes were enacted. As we understand this particular chemical, and this comes from talking to experts, both on this case, but also just scientific experts in general, this is an extremely persistent chemical, as it said. It is a nonstick chemical. So while that's wonderful in terms of making your eggs and your omelet in the morning on a nonstick pan, it's not so great in the environment. So the belief has to be, although we don't want to necessarily speculate, but the belief has to be that things that were dumped in have accumulated over the course of time. And I think that's what the science shows. It accumulates in the environment. It accumulates in your body when you ingest it. And it's an extremely dangerous chemical as a result.
And David, from Tennessee Riverkeeper's perspective, I mean, is it possible that there are people living in the area where the state has made these notices that are going around with health implications that they don't realize are a function of either living so close to the water, living, on the water in terms of recreation, or having spent a lifetime of ingesting stuff from the river in terms of fish and whatnot, that may be walking around with some adverse effects from these chemicals?
Absolutely, that's entirely possible. Recently there was drinking water warnings issued for about 10,000 people in North Alabama, and they were told that their water was not safe to drink by their local water authority, and it caused an environmental crisis in Alabama and there was, they were told that they couldn't cook or drink the water, and that they needed to be using bottled water, and that they had emergency stands set up to distribute cases of bottled water to the affected residents. And then recently, the state, including the governor of Alabama, Governor Bentley, declared that the water was safe to drink and that there was nothing to worry about. They apparently are pumping in water from Decatur Utilities to help dilute their drinking water in West Morgan and East Lawrence County, Alabama. But I've told that, because of that, they're not handing out any more free bottled water. They're told that the water was safe to drink. There's conflicting information apparently on local websites in the area that's saying that the water may not be safe to drink, and despite the governor and the state saying it is. And this is one of the poorest parts of the state of Alabama. A lot of these people are senior citizens who are on fixed income and can't afford to buy bottled water. And there's just still tremendous panic and uncertainty that's affecting, anywhere from 10 to 100, hundreds of thousands of residents in North Alabama. And part of this lawsuit is to try to clean this up and try to make life better for all these communities in the Tennessee Valley that have been negatively impacted by 3M's PFCs.
Wow. Well, I guess we are just at the beginning of this case, and we will hear more of this as it goes forward. I want to thank David Whiteside from the Tennessee Riverkeeper, Mark Martin, also the chief prosecuting attorney there, and Derek Fanciullo of the firm Matsudukas and Fanciullo. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it, and we will be following the story in the coming months, and perhaps, I imagine, this could even take years. But appreciate your time today, gentlemen.